Hello and welcome to your next lesson. Today, we'll use the report we made in the last video to apply conditioning format to our data. We'll set up multiple rules to answer questions about our data. We'll assign colors to our highest and lowest profit. We'll also assign rules based on higher than or less than values. Additionally, we'll take a look at our color scales and icon sets. Conditioning format will answer questions about your data based on a visual representation, and I am looking forward to sharing this lesson with you. Having said that, please open your pivot worksheet and go to the Report Layout tab to follow along in this lesson. Okay, so here we are in our workbook, and if you did not save a copy of your Report Layout pivot table, I have stored a copy for you to work with. Let's go ahead and right-click any tab at the bottom of our worksheet, and let's go ahead and say Unhide. We want to go ahead and select Report Layout 2 and then say OK. And this is the spreadsheet that we will be working with if you have not saved a copy of your own report. So as you can see, our worksheet reflects region, quarters, cost, profit, and revenue. I'm most interested in profit, so what I want to do before I do anything is drag profit to my last column. So I'm going to select it in the values section, and I'm just going to go ahead and drag it down. So now I'm going to go ahead and highlight my profit values. I'm going to go up to the conditioning format drop down, which can be found in the Home tab. I'm going to go ahead and say Highlight Cell Rules. Now I want to go ahead and say greater than. Now what I'm looking for first is any value in my profit values that is greater than $2 million. So I'm going to go ahead and type 2 million. And then I'm going to go ahead and say OK. Okay, so now as you scroll through, you see you have multiple values that is greater than 2 million. Let's go ahead and set up a similar rule, but this time we'll do less than 1 million. So let's leave our values highlighted. Let's go ahead and say Highlight Cell Rules. This time we're going to say less than. And let's go ahead and select 1 million this time. Let's choose a different color. Let's say green. And then go ahead and say OK. Alright. So now when you scroll through, you instantly see that the values greater than 2 million are highlighted in red. And the values that are less than 1 million are indicated in green. Okay, so before we proceed to our next lesson, let's go ahead and clear out the rules. Let's get the conditioning format drop down, and let's go ahead and say clear rules for the entire sheet. So next we're going to ask Excel to highlight our greatest values and our lowest values. So let's go ahead and select our values. Let's go ahead and say conditioning format. This time we're going to say top and bottom rules. Now let's go ahead and say top 10 items. I want to go ahead and reduce the number. Let's say top 3. And we're going to go ahead and leave it highlighted in red. Let's say OK. Okay, now let's go ahead and do the same for the bottom. Again, let's make sure that our numbers are highlighted. Let's say top and bottom rules. This time we're going to go ahead and select bottom 10 items. Again, let's go ahead and reduce it to 3. Let's change the color and say green. So now as you scroll through, you will see where your highest profits are coming from just by looking at the color codes. And you'll also be able to tell where your lowest value is as well. Okay, so next let's go ahead and take a look at our color scales. But before we do that, let's go ahead and clear our rules. Let's get the drop down and let's go ahead and say clear rules. Okay, so let's go ahead and select our values. Let's get the drop down for conditioning format. Let's go ahead and say data bars. Choose any color that you like. I'm going to go with the blue. So as you scroll through, you'll see the figures with the lowest value may not reflect the bar at all. But then you'll see the figure with the highest value that is almost completely covered. Okay, so let's go ahead and change this from data bars to color scale. Again, let's get our conditioning format. Let's say clear rules for the entire sheet. Now let's go ahead and select color scale. Now here you can scroll through and it'll give you a preview of what it will look like once you have selected a color scale. I'm going to select the green color scale. Okay, so as you scroll through, you'll see the figures with the higher value has a darker green color tone, and the figures with a lighter value may still reflect white or may have a very hint of green, or whichever color scale that you chose. Okay, so this is a great way to add a pop of color to your scale. So let's go ahead and take a look at our icon set. Now what I would like to do is just base this last exercise on region alone. So let's go ahead and remove quarters from our rows. Select the drop down and just go ahead and say remove fill. So when I remove the quarters, I am now reduced to only 7 rows. So next, I would like to reflect my profit and my color scale in 2 different columns. So we're going to do that by adding a second profit category to our value section. So you simply want to take total profit and drag it to the last place in the value section. Okay, so now you're left with cost, revenue, profit, and the sum of total profit. Okay, so having said that, let's begin by clearing our rules. Let's select the drop down from conditioning format, and let's go ahead and say clear rules for the entire sheet. So next, I would like you to select cell F3 through F10. Let's get the drop down for the number format. Let's say more number formats. Let's go ahead and say custom, and let's go ahead and type 3 semicolons. Now this is telling Excel that we would like to hide our data. Let's go ahead and say OK. So now if I click inside of cell F4 and look up at the formula bar, you'll see that my data is still there. It's just no longer being displayed on the front end. So let's go ahead and do our exercise. Let's go ahead and select our hidden values. Let's get the drop down for conditioning format. Let's go ahead and select data bars. Now this time I want to go ahead and sort by profit. So let's get the drop down for the region. Let's say more sort options. Let's say sort by sum of total profit. And let's go ahead and say OK. Okay, so now as you can see, it places my bars in a nice uniform scale. So we're left with our color scale in column F, but the numbers are reflected in column E. So let's go ahead and assign an icon set, and then we'll wrap up the lesson. Okay, so again, let's make sure that our values are highlighted. Let's get the drop down from conditioning format and say icon sets. So as I scroll through, you'll see different options. I can select arrows, I can select shapes, traffic lights, check mark indicators, and even stars. I'm going to go ahead and select the arrows. Feel free to choose another option. So if you want to know more about the conditioning format, that information is covered in section 4 of this series. So go ahead and take a look. And with that being said, I'm going to wrap this lesson up. I hope you found this information helpful, and I will see you in the next video. Okay, so that wraps up this video. Job well done today. Be sure to save your work and then celebrate your accomplishments. Great job!